Hey, Gopher fans, it's Gopher Football Weekly with Golden Gopher head football coach PJ Fleck. I'm Mike Grimm. Justin Guard from our flagship station here in the Twin Cities, KFAN, and our sideline reporter on the Gopher Radio Network is with us as well. Many of you are listening to us on the radio right now and can't see us. Those that are following along on social media and on Zoom see Coach is in his office, Guardsy's in his mansion, and I'm in my little, dungeon. So that's what we have going here today. Coach, not much happening today other than the Big Ten says season on, and obviously I'd love to get your first instinctive reaction to the news from today.
Yeah, we're back. We're so excited. Had a team meeting this morning. The players were fired up. From day one, everybody wanted to play. Everybody wants to coach. We said that in our press conference. We made that very public. But I think this kills two birds with one stone when you look at it, where you get the players who were a little apprehensive at times and parents who are a little apprehensive at times with how are you going to keep my son safe? What are the protocols? How can you promise a COVID-free field? And then you had the others we just want to play. I think this blends both together. And I think that everybody has a really good understanding of how we're going to move forward. And we're just thankful for everybody's hard work, everybody's leadership, and the guidance through all this. It's been hard. That's for sure. But at the end of the day, the Big Ten gets to play, and we're really, really thankful and really excited for it.
You mentioned it's been hard. How hard has this been in terms of trying to navigate through the emotions of it? And as you mentioned, the want that you want to play, but then knowing that there's some safety things going on and people in charge at a high level are trying to make decisions for 14 schools involving how many, 1,400 players, basically. How hard has it been for you and your team?
Yeah, I think that's what's made it just difficult for everybody is just the word uncertainty. But you look at the Big Ten landscape from day one, whether it's, Rutgers out in New Jersey in the New York City area, whether you look at what was going on in Michigan with the state or whether it was going on in Illinois or, even in Minnesota, the Big Ten landscape has a lot of major cities around it. And you were following all CDC policy, state laws, and everybody had completely different state laws. And so you're trying to make policy and rules and guidelines based on all these different states that fit everyone. And we're in a different landscape at times and with different rules. And I think that what's made it very difficult on everybody. The uncertainty of when and if we were going to play puts a lot of added pressure and stress on young people. And I think that was the major focus, was just our players. I spent, 24/7 just thinking about how we're going to make our team better mentally, physically, and emotionally. But more importantly, the mental health of this football team, of how we're going to keep our guys engaged. They started thinking 3 months down the road, and that's when you lose people. That's when the mental health really doesn't go well. We got to control now. We got to keep everybody focused on now. We have to be able to work on Zoom. We have to be able to do all these things that aren't normal, which what's normal about all of our lives is football. It's the one common thing that we have as a professional coach. You have football. Players have football season to look forward to. In January all the way through December, they know what the season is. They know what the routines are. And when that's taken away with uncertainty, that there's a lot of mental health issues that can come into play there and a lot of uncertainty. And then you send people home for a long time. Now they're under different guidance, different rules. It was all just really hard. Not saying it was all bad. It was just hard because you were leading from afar. And usually what makes this really hard, we worry about our kids when they go away on spring break, let alone leave for 3 months, right? And completely don't have us except for Zoom. It was just very unique. And we learned a lot through it. And we're just going to continue to get better and continue to keep a safe environment the best we possibly can. And I think everybody's just really thankful that we're back to some type of normalcy in terms of football schedule.
So when did you feel like this was actually going to be a possibility? August 11th, you're told it's over. We're not going to play. About a week later, we're not going to revisit it at all. When did you guys start thinking like we might actually try to make this thing work?
I don't remember the exact day, but I would say probably mid last week to maybe the beginning of last week. You could just feel a little bit of the momentum swinging a little bit more towards maybe with the rapid testing and the president's possibly getting back together. Calls that we had with the head coaches, just the feeling you got and the vibe you got with the new technology and the new medical advancements that have been installed for COVID-19. I think that helped everything. I think that gave us hope and gave us a chance. And then as it continues to move forward, you look at, hey, there's definitely a possibility if we can eliminate contact tracing, if we can get rapid testing, we got a chance. And then that happens. And next thing you know, the season ended up happening the way obviously everything, how it unfolded today. So, but it's been a long process. And again, everybody involved, just want to give thanks to everybody involved. And there's so many, whether administrators, whether the Big Ten, whether coaches, there's just been so many, and the players, just so many people involved in getting this thing done and passed and pushed through. And it's not about pushing through. It's about being safe. It's about finding a way to make sure that you can answer every single question. And I think at the time when the Big Ten canceled it, you couldn't answer all those questions. And so I think that's why our players said at the beginning that they all wanted to play, 100% wanted to play. Every kid I talked to wanted to play. That's been very public. But there was definitely some hesitancy of how we were going to do it. So again, when our players sat there and said, hey, we think they made the right decision for the information they have, that's what they mean, is that based on the information that's out there, how can you play? Now they see the information that's out there and they can't wait to play.
So how much have you talked to coaches? You mentioned it seems like there's a lot of rivals that might be getting together here the last couple of weeks to try to figure out and push ideas. It seems like coaches have kind of done a lot of stuff on their own here the last month. How much were you communicating with each other within the league to try to figure out how do we get here, how do we make it safe, and how do we present that back to our bosses and their bosses that we think we can make a run at this?
Yeah, there's a lot of coaches involved in this. And, the fun thing about being in the Big Ten is there's rivalries all over the place. And on game day, it's a true rivalry. And it's a rivalry in recruiting and things like that. But, there's some unbelievable men in this profession. And there's some unbelievable men with some wonderful ideas who all want the same thing as head coaches of the Big Ten. And it was fun for all of us, maybe very difficult, but fun at times to be able to come together every single week in a non-competitive format and really be able to pick everyone's brains of how people are doing it and how we're going to be able to make it better. And we all wanted to play. I think every single coach on there wanted to play. We all had different circumstances of how it was going to happen or if we were going to be able to play, because this wasn't necessarily a head coach's vote, whether we play or not, right? This was more way above us. But we at least had the ability to have a voice, be able to say what we wanted, especially with each other, and come up with really, really amazing plans. I know Jeff Brom's plan was out there. Ryan Day's plan was out there. James Franklin had a lot of really amazing ideas. So it was just really fun to listen to coaches really come together for all one common goal, is to find a way to play the game we all love to coach and play safely and get back to football as soon as we could in a safe environment.
Coach, how much were you in contact with President Gable, who I assume was in contact then with all of her colleagues, and then medical people, and your athletic director, Mark Coyle? This decision certainly was a collaboration of all of those forces, I would think. How often were you on Zooms or talking text or what have you with all of those people?
Well, Mark Coyle and I have a very close relationship. I think Mark Coyle does an amazing job of running our athletic department. Not only that, of making sure that I'm informed. He might not have all the answers, but he always keeps me up to date of what's going on so I can make our football program the best it possibly can be. And anytime you don't do that and you're going to have this lack of communication, there's going to be this void. And as human beings, most of the time, this void that'll either get bigger and bigger and bigger is always filled with negativity. Right? Think about just our relationships with our family members or our loved ones. When you haven't talked in a while, sometimes like, well, what did I do wrong? And it's just filled with negativity. Our brains are naturally wired to sit there and say, if there's a lack of communication, there must be a problem, right? So Mark does a great job of breaking that barrier down. President Gable, she came out to practice once or twice to be able to talk to our team, let them know what's going on, let them know that she's there for them, and that she cares for them, and that every decision made by her will always have their well-being at the forefront of her mind, period. No matter what anybody else is doing, no matter how they're doing it, we're going to make sure that their safety is at the forefront of our mind. And she came through with exactly what she promised. And, we've talked a few times, but not a lot. It's really gone through Mark Coyle, but she's done a great job representing the University of Minnesota throughout this entire process. I'm just lucky to work for just really amazing people who really truly care about our student athletes.
Then how much on the medical You have to talk with the team doctors and physicians and researchers to make sure you are relaying info or getting your team and players in touch with people that might need it. And then obviously, testing and everything clearly now moving forward will be huge. But I would guess, the testing was, you guys were fairly good. I mean, it's hard to be perfect in a situation like this, but it looked like the numbers were fairly good over the course of the summer months.
Well, we organized multiple different Zooms. I think Mark Coyle did a great job of that. We did that internally. Mark did that from the administrative side to involve the medical staff with Q&As with our players so they could really, and their parents, to be able to get this, the facts, which might not have had all the answers. I still remember when we first started this, we got on with our doctors and team doctors and surgeons and things like that. There weren't many answers. And I think this whole narrative at the beginning of this, when we first said that, how are we going to play? I think every single person back in March, April, May was like, how are we going to play? How are we going to play? There's no possible way we can play, right? Because there are no answers to the questions. And then it evolved into, okay, we're going to play, but, and then it became like, well, we're not going to play. Then it became, well, we want to play. And there was this whole pendulum of how things went throughout this whole time. And I thought our doctors, our training staff, Mike Sipniak, Joe, Arno, they were elite throughout this whole thing. And that's who I have daily communications with. But our team doctors were very informative to our training staff that could relay the information to me. Our doctors were very, very close in contact with our administration of exactly what we could do and what we could do to keep our student athletes and our coaching staff and our employees and the faculty safe here at the University of Minnesota. So you'd like to sit there and think we're on a phone all the time. We're not. I get updates, whatever it was every week, but there was a lot of I don't knows. And I don't know was what had to be an acceptable answer for a while, which I think that was one of the hardest parts was I don't know. Our players go, I don't know. But that's why we're not moving forward, because we just don't know yet. And if I don't know, protected and saved lives, or at least be able to protect a lot of our players from getting it at that particular time, then it was worth it. Now we just have to find a way to be able to move forward. We got to find a way to get our team better. And we've got to find a way to make sure that this preparation goes as well as it possibly can go.
All right, very good. Let's take our first break here. It's our first show. I know we'd all love to be at Sensors and be under normal circumstances and seeing everybody line up outside the door as we have for a number of years now. But for the time being, this will have to do. We're on the radio, we're on the computer screen, and we'll have segment 2 of our first show of the year when we come back. It's Gopher Football Weekly with PJ Fleck from Learfield, IMG College. Back to Gopher Football Weekly with PJ Fleck, Mike Grimm, and Justin Gard with the head coach, and it's our first show of the year. And we want to take this opportunity to thank our main presenting sponsor, Onward for Business, presented by Sunbelt Business Advisors. They want you to be on their team when you buy or sell a business. Onward for Business is the one-stop shop for buying or selling your business and for payroll, insurance, bookkeeping, and more. Onward. Sunbelt Business Advisors, proud to sponsor Gopher Football Weekly with PJ Fleck. Coach, how long now that you know the date, the weekend of October 24th is the projected start time, how long will it take? How soon can you have your team ready to play in that game that weekend?
Well, we got to get them ready to play that particular game, right? So we've been practicing the last few weeks. It's gone really well. It's not practice, right? But it's a form of practice to get them ready. And now, as we continue to go into this, we've already made our schedule for what we're going to do. We made 5 or 6 different schedules, whether we play the 17th of October, the 24th of October. We started in November on Thanksgiving weekend. Or Thanksgiving week, or we started in January, and then we made multiple plans of what that was going to look like, because this isn't just about going right back and here we go, 5 straight weeks of practice every single day. They've got school, right? They've got their spiritual life that they're involved in. This isn't like a true, it's got to be a training camp feel when they're here, but you're not going to have that training camp time where 100% of their time is dedicated to training camp. So we got up this morning and had a team meeting, and we read Goldilocks and the 3 Bears to our players. I know it sounds crazy, but that's what we did, because the whole point of that is we've got to find a way to do things just right. And maybe we're going to do it different than everyone else, but we're going to do what's right for ours. our team, our players, what's needed for us to be able to have success, and what's needed for them to have success in every area of their life, academically, athletically, socially, and spiritually, and make sure they're okay mentally, physically, and emotionally. This isn't just like shoving the square peg in the round hole and just like, let's go with our hair on fire. There are certain rules that we have. There's certain hours that we're going to be able to have. This is in-season practices mixed with training camp mentality. So it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be very interesting. But again, it's got to be just right. So we got the Three Bears type theme for the next 5 weeks, and we're fired up. And half these kids never heard of the Three Bears. I mean, right. As I said, hey, how many of you ready for Goldilocks and the Three Bears? It was like crickets. And they didn't even say anything. Like, what is he talking about? But we got going on that. So we'll get them ready. We'll get them ready.
Do they have porridge in Athletes Village at the training table? I don't even think they have porridge.
It's way better than porridge. That food over there is absolutely elite.
Yeah, I mean, they have no idea what porridge is.
That's probably the point. They're probably saying, what's porridge, And not only that, though, there's the chairs involved in that and the beds involved in that,
That's right.
So remember, they could do the porridge, then they went to the chair, then they went to the bed, right? So on and so forth. So
leave it to me to focus on just the food aspect of it. You mentioned the differences. What a lot of us that are listening now have been out to your practices over the last couple of years. So how different do you think practices will look, or what accommodations have you had to make to practice in a safe way?
Well, first of all, there's no pads, right? So, I mean, I think that kind of limits what you can do. Right now, we're in some shells, right, to keep, or not shells, spiders, to keep a little protection on the shoulders, but you're not allowed to have shoulder pads on, and you're not allowed to go full pads. But so what we've been able to do is a lot of 7-on-7 if you can, all right? A lot of individual drills, a lot of, one-on-one type stuff, a lot of walkthroughs, getting a lot of our special situation stuff. But as we start to move forward, it's going to turn into more a spring ball mixed with training camp, mixed with a lot of like off-season walkthrough, right? So as you kind of look at that, it's going to be this kind of an amoeba forming, but really just going to be this kind of blend of all of it. And I love the schedule. We have not shown it to the players just yet because we wanted to wait till we got the exact date, but I think they're going to like it. They're really like Men's Warehouse. You're going to love the way you look. You're going to love the way this plan is laid out. But again, like I said, this theme of just right, it's got to be just right because the last 5 months have worn down kids. It's worn them out. No matter how many breaks you've taken, no matter where you go, you can't escape the thought of what's happening next, or COVID, or the social injustice. What's going on in our country has taken away, and taken away a lot of the directed energy at times that's just been on football. Rightfully so for a lot of different areas in our lives right now. But we've got to make sure that we can get them to direct a lot of their energy towards our football team, towards coming together, towards being the standard of what a football team and what a nation should look like when you bring together all people of different races, ethnicities, religions. Be that example, and also get ready for being an elite football team as well, with plenty of challenges that will be coming. But this is what Row the Boat's made for, everybody. I mean, there's no coincidence that Row the Boat is here in Minnesota, because there are going to be some storms, hurricanes, calm seas, winds, calm days, beautiful sunrises, sunsets, rainbows, butterflies, rain, thunder, lightning, and we're just going to keep our oar in the water. It's going to be a very, very interesting voyage in 2020 as we set sail for it.
What have you seen from your team up to this point from a football standpoint? Because not knowing when a season might start up until today, how specific in football did you get? How often are you able to work out? What have you seen from them?
Well, first of all, we lost a lot of impact players from last year, right? I mean, we can talk about however many seniors we had, and we only have 11 seniors this year. But when you look at our football roster, and you're going to watch who actually plays this year, there's going to be a lot of young kids that Gopher fans have never even heard of unless you follow us in recruiting. When you lose Bateman and you lose Tyler Johnson and you lose, two of the first-team All-Big Ten players, which is the first time ever in the history of our conference that two of those players came from the same team, that were both first-team All-Big Ten at the same position at wide receiver. You lose them. You look defensively. We lost some really impact players who were all playing in the National Football League. 5 players drafted. All those guys making some type of team and roster, playing. There's so much energy and so much positivity and so much momentum, as other people would say, going on here. But just because that's going on doesn't guarantee that you have a really good season. This is we have a different character on this football team. We're going to have to find different ways of winning than we did last year, with a lot of the impact positions being younger players and players who maybe haven't had that type of experience yet. And we're going to have to find unique ways to be able to make this team be able to have an identity really quickly. Because we've been able to practice and do things, but coming together is when you practice and you scrimmage and you have all those things, you can now form an identity. We know what we want to be, but now we got to practice on what we want to become, and what we are going to become, and what we can do and what maybe we can't do from last year. So that's what's really fun about this as we get into the next 5 weeks.
You mentioned Bateman obviously opting out a couple of weeks ago with the uncertainty. Now that there's certainty around a season starting, do you anticipate you'll have more conversations with anybody on your team or anybody that might be concerned about the protocols or playing or maybe coming back from injuries or anything like that? I guess the question is, do you expect anybody else to opt out, or are you having those conversations?
You just never know in a pandemic situation like this. You never know how it's going to strike people, or what is said or what happens that strikes the right chord. But we support players that decide to opt out. We just support players who decide to go on to the NFL. We support players who decide to stay here and opt in. This is a very unique time. There's a reason why 2020 for a player doesn't count in terms of your eligibility. Right? And there's a reason for that. Okay, because it's going to be a very unique season. And as you've seen all over the country, people have opted out. Sophomores have left for the NFL, which you're really not really allowed to do unless there's a situation like this. But again, we support everyone. It's going to be very unique. Even people who test positive, as all of you seen. And now if you test positive, you got to be out 21 days, which is, that's 3 games. That's a long time. That's going to affect roster management, right? The green, the orange, the red, that's going to affect roster management. It's going to be a very interesting year. That's what makes it really exciting, though. Let's strap it up and let's go, right? This is what's going to be really fun, is because every week you could have a different dynamic. There's going to be a different challenge. There's going to be normal injuries, which happen. Then there's going to be COVID, possibly. There could be some opt-outs. But again, we want to make sure that all along, put it this way, we have made sure the facts have been there for the guys opting out and the guys opting in, that this could happen in October. And if it happens, would you think the same? Yes, I would think the same. If it happens in November, would you feel the same? Yes, I'd feel the same. If we were able to have the type of rapid testing, would you feel the same? If it happens in January, would you feel the same? We've gone over this with our entire football team individually and as a team. And the guys who have made the decision for the right reasons of how they feel and their family feels. And like I said, we support them. Gives great opportunity for young guys to be able to step in there and play in a year that doesn't count against their eligibility, that gets them ready for 2021 too. So it's going to be a fun year, unique year. This is definitely going to be a year we can all write books on and share a lot of stories.
Well, for the record, because I've gotten it a million times already, Rashad Bateman can't come back, okay? He signed with an agent, so he can't come back. I heard you with Dave Revson on Big Ten Network. He asked the same question as well. So Gopher fans, sorry, that's not going to happen at this point.
Yeah, we support Rashad 100%. As you probably could see, I was half kidding on there, laughing and talking about. But it was. My first text to him was, "You sure?"
Yeah,
I know
that's everybody's thought, right?
Yeah, and but he's, he is such a Gopher through and through. He has done so much for our program in such a short amount of time. We're so happy for him. We're so thankful for the time we got with him. It was a short amount of time, but that's what we want to make that clear to our fans. Appreciate the players you have.
Right.
This is not going to be an oddity anymore. And I want to make sure our fans understand that having players leave early as juniors and thinking you're going to get them for all 4 or 5 years, that's going to, that could start becoming the norm, where people leave early at times. We're recruiting really good players. And our coaches are really good at developing them. So appreciate the time you have with them, because you never know when that's going to be taken from you. And we all wish we could have Rashad back another year, and all of us. But it gives room for these young guys to perform and start their career, not only for now, but for the future. Remember, Rashad Bateman had to get in a game, and he was good, but he wasn't as good as when he left. When he first started. But we're so happy for him. We're so thankful for the time he had. He's a Gopher through and through. There's not a bigger Gopher fan than Rashad Bateman. And, my first text was to him, "Hey, you sure, man?"
we're due for another break here. We will take that. You heard Coach mention green, orange, and red protocols and numbers. We'll talk about that, and we'll find out what kind of things now will be put in place to make sure they're staying in the green category so that football can indeed happen. Stay with us. It's Gopher Football Weekly with PJ Fleck from your field. Welcome back at segment 3 of our first show of the year, Gopher Football Weekly with PJ Fleck. Things a little bit getting back to normal now as we are here talking football. Football season is set to start on October 24th now with the announcement from the Big Ten today. Mike Grimm and Justin Gard with you. And question, Coach, is it's supposed to start October 24th. Of course, that's the assuming that everything goes well between now and then. And there's a lot of numbers and protocols and guidelines the Big Ten has put in place that teams have to meet to make sure that happens. So I guess I'll ask the basic question: what kind of things does the department have to do to look? Not you try to control everything you can, but certainly it doesn't guarantee anything. What kind of things do you try to do to make sure there's that green category, the orange category, and the red category, and you want to stay in that green category in order to practice and play?
The biggest thing we can do is educate them. These are not professionals. They're going to school. Most of our school is online right now, which helps. But I told them this morning that this is not going to be a normal year. All of us are going to have to give up a lot, right? And I'm talking about after a big win and going out to some party or going to share it with a bunch of friends. We might have to give that up because one bad decision is going to cost you 3 games, okay? And we really have to be able to create this synthetic bubble. And I think everybody kind of laughed when we had bubble machines everywhere when the players first came back. We had bubble gum in their lockers. We had everything bubble, right? We had guys going down the hallway in those real, like those hamster bubble blow up things, just to give people the sense of like bubble, 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 right? Yeah. And so we still have to do that. We got to make sure, again, it sounds like we're in elementary school again, but it's the washing of the hands. It's wearing our masks, right? It's practice social distancing the best we possibly can. And again, but it's this education. We've been through this for a while now. There's been times our team probably wasn't very good at it. There's been times we've been really good at it. We failed to grow. We failed to learn. It's like, don't touch the stove, don't touch the stove, don't touch the stove. And our kids would touch the stove and boom, next thing you know, we'd sit there and say, all right, now we got so many cases. Now we have to be able to, you can't be here anymore. And you were around him and you didn't wear a mask and now you have to be out because you're quarantined. And I think we learned the biggest lesson of like the quarantines and how does this virus spread, how easy it can spread, how you not even knowing you have it can spread. So it's the education. It's the constant education, the reminder. Remember, we're still dealing with young people who are in college, right? College, the social time of your life. And we're saying, yep, we want you to be social, but not too social. And we want you to enjoy it. We just don't want you to enjoy it as much as you really can. And we want you to play football, but now we got all these guidelines in football too. So everything in their life's been like, you can do it, however, or we can do it, but this. So it's just constant education. It's being the example. It's finding ways to make sure that we do everything we can to do a lot of things together, stay close-knit, stay with each other, and not let a lot of people into that bubble.
Coach, you mentioned the mental health part of it. How much does it help now to know that there's games to be played, even from maybe having a motivation to not go to out to a group of people and say, look, we're playing Wisconsin Saturday. I'm not going to that Tuesday night get together. I'm staying in my room where, let's face it, if there wasn't a game, human nature might lead one to say, you know what, to heck with it. I'm going to go out, and it's hard to say, like you said, they're young people. It's hard to, the human nature part of it is there. So how much does it help now that you have that out there as motivation that, yeah, there are games here if things go the right way?
Well, there's a light at the end of the tunnel now. Now there's a concrete date. Here's what we're doing. Here's what we're working on. Here's where we're focused on. And we're going to play on this date. Now we know that. So that's concrete. Feels good. Everybody likes it. And let's go. We got 5.5 weeks. Let's go get ready. Here's our plan. Here we go. We told our team, you got to treat it like you're in training camp. If you wouldn't do it in training camp, you don't do it now. And training camp, again, is a little bit different than what they're doing now, but they got to have a training camp mentality. And so that's what we've done, everything we can to focus their mindset on. But it is difficult. It is difficult to tell them what they can't do just because it feels like in season. It feels like they're going to school. It feels like a normal in season or out of season, but now they're in a training camp mentality. So that's what we'll continue to tell them. We'll continue to sell that forward and as well as doing all the protocols.
What have you learned as you watch the NBA in the bubble, the NHL in the bubble, what baseball's doing, even the NFL now a week in? The NFL, it seems like, has done a really good job, even though they're not bubbled, of everybody's taking care of each other. Have you learned any lessons from them that you'll bring forward to your guys and your approach?
Well, absolutely. I think that they all need to know every kid wants to go play in the NFL. Every kid wants to go play in the NHL or the NBA, right? Depending on what sports you play. And sometimes we just think, oh, those are just college rules. Or, oh, it's just because I'm a student athlete. I mean, if you truly want to be an elite player, and look at the sacrifices the NBA guys are making. Look at the sacrifices the NFL guys are making, right? And if you want to have a job that one day like that, you're going to have to make a ton of sacrifices. They're successful for a reason because they can give up things in their life that the normal person won't. And that's probably why they're playing in the NBA or in the NFL or the NHL. That's the reason. Right? I was talking to Josh Donaldson the other day, and he's a neighbor of mine. I'm not sure if people know that from the Twins. And it's amazing to hear the sacrifices he's made to become an MLB player. But sometimes we think as college, I'm still a kid.
Right.
I'm getting all these rules. Well, the NFL and the NBA are having more rules than anybody else. And if you don't obey those rules, there's tons of punishment.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, a ton. The hammer comes down hard on those. So we're using them as an example of you might not be a professional and you might not make millions of dollars right now, but they have to, if they want that, they have to make all these sacrifices. So what's the difference? If you want to get there one day and you want to play well and you want to get a lot of film and a lot of tape and you want that experience to be able to get there one day, you're going to have to sacrifice a lot too. So we've reflected back on those all the time. And I think those they've had access to rapid testing and all those other things that we now have access to. So it's a great example and a great model as we move forward. Our players just have to do it while they're going to class, while they're still student athletes, and they have the responsibilities of those. But not having the classes in person for the majority of them is helping that. It's helping that bubble. But now we just have to be able to convince them that you've got to act like a pro and a professional for the next 4 months.
Well, and I've said all summer, because people were wondering, well, can you ask college kids to not be college kids? And I would say a lot of the kids you have are here because they've sacrificed along the way. Some of them might be super talented and there's been no sacrifices, but they've already made, I think, a series of good decisions to get to where you are. And if any group could have the discipline and make those sacrifices and understand the reasons why, as you always talk about, it's made sense to me that college athletes could do that.
Yeah, I always think they could. I think the biggest hiccup and the biggest hurdle was going to be in-class live classrooms, because now all of a sudden you got 1,000 people in an auditorium, and again, there's no control over that. But I thought President Gable's done a great job of balance, of making sure that she keeps our students, not only student athletes, but the student body, really healthy. And again, sometimes you got to be the parent. And sometimes the child doesn't like the parent. They don't like the rules. They don't like to be able, they want to, press the rules and press the laws that are underneath them. And that's part of being young. But if you want to have a season and if you want to have a successful team, we have to do things. And it goes all the way back to year one. If you guys remember, a race to maturity. After practice, last night's message was race to maturity. We're going back to year two. We have to be able to, whatever we have to do, we have to want to do. So if we give you some type of rule or some type of a suggestion, you got to want to do it, because it's with the best interest for you at heart and for this football team. So I think our team understands that. They haven't been perfect, but they've gone through the last 5 months, learned a lot, and hopefully we're at a point where we truly value it. We got a season October 24th. The light is there, and now I hope that everybody comes into that bubble and says, we can do this.
All right, one more segment with head coach PJ Fleck here on his weekly radio show. It's sponsored by Onward for Business, presented by Sunbelt Business Advisors, wanting it to be on your team when you buy or sell a business. It's Onward for Business, the one-stop shop for buying or selling your business and for payroll, insurance, bookkeeping, and more. Onward, Sunbelt Business Advisors, proud to sponsor Gopher Football Weekly with PJ Fleck. Our remaining moments. Up next, it's Gopher Football Weekly with PJ Fleck from Learfield, IMG College. Welcome back. It's our final segment, Gopher Football Weekly with PJ Fleck. The good news today was released from the Big Ten. There will be football. It will start in late October. And we were just joking off the air during our break that it will hopefully lead right up to a nice trip in Indianapolis in mid to late December. Schedule, as we are taping this, not out yet, but as it does come out, I'm sure we'll spend next week's show breaking that schedule down. Coach Fleck, I wanted to ask you quickly. I was in the car last night listening to the radio, and all of a sudden I heard our buddy Mark Rosen and the Vikings quarterback Kirk Cousins on their weekly show. And who pops on the show as a special guest but PJ Fleck? And I was familiar a little bit with how you and Kirk Cousins had gotten to know each other a little bit. Of course, Kirk, a Big Ten guy himself from the state of Illinois, from the state of Michigan, and then went to Michigan State. And you guys talked on that podcast this week. It was pretty cool. For those that missed it and those that aren't familiar with the background, how did you and Kirk Cousins get to know each other? And I know he's visited practice a few times, and you guys occasionally will text and stay in touch.
Well, it was fun to be on the show with them. I mean, to get to me, there must have been a lot of people who canceled.
You were available. They didn't think you were playing. Said PJ's not doing anything.
That's right. He's not doing anything. He's just hanging out at the house. But Kirk and I got a chance to meet when I was at Western Michigan. Kirk and I got together, talked about leadership. He was, a professional football player at that time, so I didn't worry about sharing information. But even on his radio show, I gave him all the fake news so he'd tell Michigan State. So, I kind of played the game a little bit. I'm kidding. But him and I got to know each other really well. It was based on leadership. He came in when I was a head coach there. We talked a lot about leadership. And then even here, when I got here, Kirk and I connected immediately. And again, went back to leadership. I think he's a wonderful leader. I think he connects his teammates really well. I think he's always willing to learn of how to be able to do it even bigger and better. And then I get a chance to pick an NFL quarterback's brain all the time. So the relationship's been really good, and he's just a wonderful advocate of the Twin Cities and leadership in general. Just a wonderful, fine human being. I mean, he really is. I mean, he is salt of the earth, the type of person he is, and look forward to a lot more to come with the Vikings.
Well, he's also a guy, he's kind of a king of the twos guy as well, like you always talk about, right? Like when he was in high school, like nobody really recruited him, like Michigan State did kind of late. There wasn't a ton expected out of him, I don't think, at least to hear him tell his story. So that factors into a lot of the things you talk about as well.
Yeah, he's got quite the career, though, playing. I didn't necessarily have that career playing, but you're right. I mean, he was told he was too small, too short, didn't have the arm strength, didn't have this, and all he's done is prove people wrong. I think that's what makes him really special is, we always talk about the chip on the shoulder, but we're a crack, not a chip. He's got a crack. He's got a crack on that shoulder where he's proving to himself all the time that he is exactly who he says he is. I haven't met a guy more that holds himself accountable for everything that happens. That's what leaders do. They find a way to make sure that when good things happen, they let other people get credit. When the bad things happen, they stand out in front. And I think that's what Kirk's always done, whether he's been at Michigan State, whether here at the Vikings. He's just an amazing human being. We're lucky to have him in the Twin Cities.
How closely, I know you took the team or have taken the team to a Vikings game. I know it was a disappointing game this past Sunday, but as a college coach, Sundays, I know for you are probably full of film study and team meetings and that stuff, but how closely do you follow, the local pro sports scene? I know that it's important that you try to intermix your team with some of that.
Oh, very much. I mean, here's the thing. When you become a head coach, I was a Cubs fan at heart, right? I'm a Bulls fan growing up around Jordan. But once you start coaching and you're in all these different towns and all these different cities and all these different states, you really become a fan pretty quickly. You know, I mean, when I was at Western Michigan, I started to like the Detroit Tigers for some reason, right? For me, like I wasn't a Detroit Tiger fan ever until I coached at, you know, Western Michigan. And then we had a donor whose brother owned the Detroit Pistons. So I became a Pistons fan, which I said I'd never become a Pistons fan, being a Bulls fan, right? So, but coming here to the Twin Cities, it's been so easy to be a fan of Ryan Saunders and the Timberwolves and getting to know Big Cat, Karl Anthony Towns, and now Josh Donaldson's my neighbor. So I've never been more a bigger Twins fan than ever. And we got Heather watching Twins games, guys. Last night, we're up to 11:30 watching the Twins game because she wants to watch it all the way till the end. So it's been great for the Fleck family and being true fans. And then the Vikings, we've always, you know, I grew up a Bears fan, been in the same division, so it's been a little bit harder that way. But I absolutely love what Coach Zimmer's done. Kyle Rudolph is very close to us, Adam Thielen. And you start to get to know these guys on very personal levels, whether it's through the coaches, whether it's through the players, and you start to become friends with people, and you root for the people, you know, and you root for the families, and you root for the teams because they got amazing people on inside their organization. So it's been very easy to make that change and make that connection here in the Twin Cities because we have a lot of them. And they're elite teams. And we're just so thankful to be in a city like this and also have a university that's so powerful here in the state of Minnesota. But, yeah, we're so close and connected with the sports teams. And it just became closer with Donaldson being our neighbor.
And no doubt about it. Well, the good news is Gopher Football will now be a part of that here this fall. We weren't sure it would in terms of actually having games. And the announcement today, the weekend of October 24th, things will get going. Coach, we'll talk to you next week. We'll have a show next week and then set the schedule from there on, figuring out, you know, how we're going to figure this out right up into the season and hopefully right up through Indianapolis and beyond. But, hey, it's great to be back, if not at Sensors, at least here on the big screen, so to speak, and on the radio. And good to see you.
Good to see you, too. We'll see you really soon, guys. Row the boat, Sky Mile, go Gophers. Maybe we can do something like this on a practice day coming up. If you're not there live, we can do some stuff like this for our fans. I think that'd be really good.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Sounds good. Guardsy, we'll talk to you next week.
All right, man. Be good.
All right, for Justin Gard and the head coach, PJ Fleck, I'm Mike Grimm. It's Gopher Football Weekly with PJ Fleck from Learfield, IMG College.